Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Gaurav Singh. I am pursuing my PhD in NIT Durgapur and currently I am the Vice Chairman organization at American Academy of Yoga and Meditation. In India, do you know that there is one suicide attempt every 3 seconds and one death by suicide of students every 40 seconds? If you talk about USA, according to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, suicide is the second leading cause of death among students after unintentional injury. These statistics alone are enough to realize that students' mental health are the next crisis. Today we are presenting Power of Yoga in Enriching Students' Emotional Health, presented by American Academy of Yoga and Meditation in collaboration with Think India. AYM is a non-profit organization working hard to bring the scientific aspect of yoga to the forefront and help people understand its value. We are a team of physicians, researchers, yoga practitioners, and humanitarians focused on our mission to build healthier tomorrow. Our valuable resources are our speakers, thinkers, and renowned personalities who have excelled in various fields. We are incredibly grateful that they have all chosen to present their thoughts through our social media platform to reach a vast audience who are benefited from them. Together, we dream of a better society that is healthier and happier. Think India is a national student organization in India who felt the need to bring the students with an Indian nationalistic string together to harness this part of national treasure in furthering their aim of national reconstruction. Students from IISc Bangalore, IIM Bangalore, NIMHANS, and NLS IU joined together to create a joint forum for students from premier institutes of India in 2006. A formal forum took place at Art of Living Ashram, Bengaluru in 2007. Since then, Think India is working in various campuses of various premier institutes in India.
Namaste, everybody. My name is Akash, and I will be speaking today about how school in the United States can impact students' mental health and emotional health. So if we can please have my presentation on the screen, that would be very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. So how does school in the United States affect a child's mental and emotional health? One major factor that plays a role in students' mental and emotional health is university admissions. Now, in high school, when we high schoolers have to apply to university, they consider three major factors. That is our standardized test scores, GPA, and extracurriculars. So, for standardized exams such as the SAT or the ACT, we need to show that we are very, very competitive. We need to show our very good scores. And in order for this to happen, in order for us to show that we have good scores, we have to have scores in or above the 98th percentile. These standardized exams actually can hold up to 50% weight in university admissions. And these exams hold a lot of weight in determining whether or not we will be able to attend a good university. Now, because this is so important for students to go to a good university, doing well in a standardized exam itself is very stressful. However, in the past 1 or 2 years, we've been experiencing the coronavirus, and this has significantly worsened the process for us students. Because of the coronavirus, universities across the United States are going test optional or test blind. And this means that Before the coronavirus, students had to submit their test scores. So even if they do not get a very good score on their SAT or ACT, the university will know about it and the university may not choose them. However, now, because universities are test optional, students do not even have to submit their test scores. So this is a very big stressor for higher achieving students because they have a lot more competition and they have to compete with students who did not get the good test scores also. So because of this, it really affects their mental and emotional health to do much, much better than they already were doing before. Another important aspect of university admissions is GPA. In order to look good in front of the university, we need to have the best possible GPA. And even a 3.8 out of a 4.0 scale is only considered good, and a 3.9 is barely considered competitive. In order to go to universities like Harvard or Stanford University, we need to have pretty much a 4.0 out of 4.0. And this is very, very difficult for high school students because very, very, high level classes like AP and IB classes, they're very difficult classes. And doing badly on even one exam in the class can significantly drop our grade for the course. One bad grade for the course can mean that we are not going to have a 4.0 GPA. Now, the coronavirus has significantly affected this aspect also. Because of COVID-19, schools across the nation are conducting their classes on Zoom. And we all know that students have different learning environments. They can only function in certain learning environments. Now, for many students, learning different subjects like math, English, and science on Zoom can be very difficult. And it may be harder for them to focus and absorb the material. And if they cannot learn the material, then it's harder for them to do well on exams also, which means that it is much, much more difficult for them to get a good GPA. Now, the third major aspect of university admission is actually the monetary cost of going to college. In the United States, the average tuition of a public university is $18,000 per year. And in 4 years, this becomes a sum of $72,000. Now, the average tuition of a private university is $37,000 per year, which is more than double the tuition of a public university. And over the course of 4 years, this actually becomes almost $150,000. Now, we have to realize that these statistics are completely excluding the costs of textbooks, transportation, and even lodging and boarding. We also need to understand that these costs are only for 4 years, only for the bachelor's degree. Many students wish to pursue graduate and postgraduate degrees, and getting an education in master's degree or PhD degree is not a bad thing. It's a very good thing, but it's a major stressor for students because of the major financial cost that is associated with getting the post-secondary education. Now, the second major factor that really can be harmful to students' mental and emotional health is their family life. It is not very uncommon for students in the United States to have dysfunctional families. Divorced parents are actually a very common thing. Students will have to travel from one parent's house to the other parent's house quite frequently, maybe once in 2 weeks or something like that. And because of this, there is a frequent change in the environment of their home. They don't get the stability of living in one place. They have to always move around. Sometimes they can only live with one parent, which means they completely feel a major hole where the other parent's impact should be. Now, sometimes these divorced parents are not only divorced, but they also could be alcohol addicts or drug addicts. They could be in jail. And because of this, the child is significantly neglected by the parents. Because of this neglect that they experience, it's very difficult for the child to do well in school. It's very difficult to learn properly, and it's very difficult to, function in general. And this can be a major cause of stress too. Now, another major element of their family life is the decrease in support from the family. After the age of 18 or 19 years old, it's very common for students to go find their own work. They may rent a personal apartment outside of their parents' home. And because of these new responsibilities of paying the bills and going to work, it's very difficult for students to cope with school and these other things simultaneously. And when it happens that there's too much on their plate, it may not be possible for them to get a good GPA, and it may not be possible for them to, sustain their good scores. And this can also be a very, very major cause of bad emotional and mental health. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is their personal life. Teen pregnancy is a very major element in the United States that is a cause for their, bad emotional and mental health. And teen pregnancy doesn't just occur in college. It actually occurs in high school and even middle school as well. And this sounds surprising, but it is very, very true across the nation. Teen pregnancy brings on unknown and even unwanted responsibilities because the student cannot handle school and parenthood simultaneously. Pregnancy also, brings on unexpected health complications. And because of all of these different effects of pregnancy and parenthood, it is very difficult for students to cope with school and these new responsibilities at the same time. Another major element is bullying, whether it's cyberbullying or any type of physical, mental, or emotional harassment. All of these types of mental bullyings are very major causes of depression. And many statistics in the United States show that, it's very frequent, it's very prevalent for students to commit suicide because of these different bullying that they experience in school. And because it's a major cause of depression, it's a major cause of suicide. And in total, it becomes a major health concern for the entire medical community. The last thing we want to talk about is substance abuse. It's very common for students, even from middle school to high school to college, to be constantly addicted to alcohol, drugs, smoking cigarettes, and different, negative things like that. And these are all significant diversions away from the studies. Because of the different peer pressure and friend groups, students are affected very negatively. They may even ditch school and they may drop out of school and leave class so that they can go and smoke, they can drink and take drugs with their friends. This also can invite legal trouble. And in total, this becomes a very, very major cause of bad mental and emotional health. And they also cannot study and learn and get their education properly. So, what are the effects of all of this? All of this can cause a drastic increase in the student's stress. It leads to depression and other mental and emotional disorders. And all of these different health issues, lead to less focus in school. The student is not as dedicated. And, a bad education means significantly harmful long-term health effects. So, I hope you all learned something about it. And I hope we can, get across to the students across the world that their choices for themselves and for their peers really have long-term implications. So it's very important for them to not to make the good choices so that they can have a positive influence on their own lives and their peers' lives. Thank you.
Sorry, there was a power outage in my area. That's why I got disconnected. Thank you, Akash. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the comment section or WhatsApp us at the given number below. I will bring them up during the presentation and we will also have time for questions at the end. Today, the number of students continuing higher education is increasing rapidly. Science and technology are developing people's life with each passing day, and living conditions are changing every day. However, researchers have found that young people are not confident in higher education. The reason is that the vast majority of young people cannot find what they expect in universities. They do not receive enough education to find job after education. Today, college youth cannot fully benefit from college education and plan their future directions and goal before graduating. This situation lead to indecision and depression among young people. After current pandemic, WHO claimed that India is the most depressed country in the world. Among children and teenagers between age of 10 to 19, one among six suffers from depression. Depression and other mental disorders are a significant public health problems on college campuses. Many students experiences their first psychiatric episode while at college, and 12 to 18% students have a diagnosable mental illness. Epidemiological studies suggest that students aged between 15 to 21 has the highest past year prevalence rate of mental illness at 39%. Einsberg in 2007 reported that general prevalence of depression and anxiety is 16% among undergraduate students and 13% among graduate students. Our next speaker of the day is Gurdeep Singh Bora. He is studying mechanical engineering at IIT Bombay. He is currently the co-convener of Think India Mumbai. He is the part of advisory committee on science and technology of the Commonwealth Youth Council. He is the CEO of Eco Green India, where he has developed a device that reduces pollutant emission in IC engines by 60 to 70%. He is also the co-founder of an NGO named Harpra Foundation, which provides quality education to underprivileged children. Mr. Gurdeep, please share with our viewers what are the problems that students face inside the campus. Since you have been working with student organization inside the campus, also emphasize how substance abuse may be the critical reason behind
Yeah. So, namaste everyone. This is Gurjit here. So, I would discuss the few problems about the students that are students currently facing in the institutes. Basically, the national institutes I would speak about. So, there are three, four problems that I have listed. One is due to the caste discrimination. Second is the parental pressure that they have in the institutes. Third is the intoxications, and fourth is the ideological difference that the students have in the universities once they get into universities, basically. So I would start with the caste discrimination. So in India, we have 50% seats reserved and 50% seats that are open. So when a student comes from a lower background, basically from a lower economical background, there's basically they are divided in some castes. So there are three, four castes they are divided into. One is SC, one is ST, one is OBC, then there is PWD, and it goes on. So caste-based reservation is collectively decided and implemented, but society is reluctant to accept it as a policy. So, for example, let us say that a student has get into IIT, but the students that have get into IITs from a general perspective, basically the other 50% that are not from the category, basically, so they don't respect the guys that actually come from the lower background, because the rank that a general guy would have is approximately less than 1,000, while the other guy on the basically the category one would be around 5,000 or 10,000. So there's this gap that needs to be placed. And the other point is when there are campus placements, the companies too doesn't prefer a category guy to be to be on board with them, because they feel that they are not capable enough to work with them, because they have get into IITs through various basically through their caste base. So based on their skills as well, they don't prefer hiring them. Second point being parental pressure. So when people get into IITs, so IITs brand themselves through as example, our student has received the package of 1 crore, our student has received the package of 2 crores. But that thing is, the package received by a guy is basically uh, one or two guy out of thousand receive the package of 1 crore or 1.5 crores. But there's a parental pressure that this guy has received a package of 1 crore, or this guy has received the package of. So you would also get somewhere around 70-80 lakh rupees. But in in reality, the package is around 12 to 15 lakhs. So the average package goes around that. So this gap is basically where the parental pressure comes, and there are suicides that are happening because the student then thinks that he is not capable enough to take participate, or be a nice guy in the society basically. Then the third point is intoxication. So basically, as Akashji said, that there are common tests that they have, and based on the GPI and common tests, they get into various institutes. But in India, we have competitive tests. So here we get admissions only through the competitive tests. So we don't get admissions based on our GPA in our high school or something. So as the national institutes are tough to crack, so in the process of preparation, most of the students get into isolation from the social contact. So after getting into national institutes, they feel difficulty in reconnecting to social life. Due to such isolations, students get into drugs or intoxications. Basically, they get into alcohol. And one more point to add here is, when the students are at home, they are under the guidance of their parents. But as and when they get into national institutes, there they have to live in this thing, hostels, or alone. Basically, they won't live with their parents henceforth. That thing, they get independence as the 2 years of preparation were very rigorous. So they get independence, and they use that independence in a very wrong way, and they get into all this kind of things. And my last point and the main point is ideology. So as in India, there's this thing going on very much that you are the guys from right ideology or the guys from left ideology. So then the professors from the different ideology, basically, if I am from the right ideology, the professor from the left ideology, when he comes to know that I am from the right ideology, he'll definitely give me less marks, and he'll definitely try to fail me, or try to lower my score as and when possible. And vice versa is also true. Mm, not only the right ones, but the left ones also do this. So these were my 4 points basically. That these are the major four problems that the students face. The four problems are caste discrimination, parental pressure in the placements, intoxication, and the ideology. Thank you.
Thank you, Guru. College is a critical transition period. Many students are living away from home for the first time and rarely get support from their family and friends. As freedom and independence increases, that Gurdeep ji already mentioned, students faces pressure from various sources such as higher academic requirements, adapting to new environments, and developing new support systems. Universities also provide opportunities to try alcohol and other drugs, already told by Akash and Gurditji, which can intensify emotional problems and increase the risk of suicide. We have with us Dr. Shivanatrajan, who is a neurology specialist in Germantown, Tennessee. Dr. Natarajan is an experienced physician who deals with epilepsy, headache, neuromuscular, and movement disorders. He is affiliated with medical facilities such as Baptist Memorial Hospital Memphis and Baptist Memorial Hospital DeSoto. Sir, please help us understand how this substance abuse can affect the nervous system on individual and can lead to mental illness. Also, please guide our brothers and sisters watching this webinar that being a neurologist, what are your suggestions to them for tackling these kinds of problems?
Thank you. Namaste. So, the human brain in the adolescent period, which is what we consider to be 11 years and above, um, that is a very vital time for the brain's development because the girl has the full brain potential by the time she is 11 or 12 years of age. And for a boy, it is about 14 or 15 years of age when the brain has completed its development in terms of the size. That means the full potential size of the brain has already reached by this age, but the brain continues to develop and evolve in terms of its connections, and we call it plasticity. That means adolescent brain has a lot of plasticity, and it is constantly capable of adapting uh, to changes and to the environment. Now, the problem with the adolescent brain is that it is not developed in the areas of the connections that it has with each other. Different parts of the brain are supposed to connect with each other and coordinate. So there is a very vital part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is our, the frontal lobe, and it's just behind the frontal lobe. And this part of the brain is what helps us to plan. It also controls our impulse. And then there is the limbic system, which is an age old brain that has been a part of the evolutionary process, very strong in the animal world, especially among reptiles. It's the flight and fight response that we have, the emotions that we have, the memories that we have. All those are part of the limbic system. So the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex are supposed to be connected with each other. And this connection happens more strongly as you cross your teenage years. So by the time you become a young adult, the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system is very strong. So you are capable of not making decisions on impulse. You make more rational decisions, you think about things, and you're not like a teenager. So you see a typical teenager, they're very reckless, and one of the reasons why they're reckless is because of this lack of connection between the frontal lobe and the limbic system. And also the nerves are going through what is called myelination. Now, myelination is the process by which the individual nerves are given a protective cover that allows them to transmit efficiently and rapidly. So, the effect of any kind of you know uh, substance, which we call illegal substances or what we look at as substance abuse. Why is it that's happening? It's happening because of the loss or the immature inhibitory control. The brain has chemicals, it has several chemicals. There is glutamate, there is GABA, there are several of them. There's dopamine, serotonin. These four chemicals are very vital in the adolescent brain, and the GABA system is not developed. So, as you mature into a young adult, your neurochemicals are also maturing. And along with the anatomy, what you're noticing is that the physiology of the brain is also maturing. So, a teenager goes through a lot of problems from the environment, and it's quite challenging because they're looking at themselves, they are changing physically, their emotions are changing, they are very impulsive, they have urge to experiment with things, there's peer pressure, there's family pressure. So substance abuse in the long term can have different effects on different humans depending on how much they use and how they use it. And one thing for sure, which has been noted, is that long term substance abuse, consistent substance abuse, leads to memory problems and what we call neurocognitive delay. And this becomes more evident as you grow into your young adult life, and you see a lot of students, and in fact the numbers are out there. And recently we have noted that about 35% of 12th graders in the US have admitted to drinking, or rather heavy drinking, within the past 1 month, and they are, used to drinking alcohol on a regular basis. So the long-term effects of substance abuse, especially alcohol, which is so easily available, is neurocognitive delay. It also affects your physicality, because it affects your physical being. It can lead to tremor. It can lead to balance problems. It can lead to vision problems. It leads to thinking. So there's a bunch of things that happens within the brain as a result of these external factors. And one of the reasons why teenagers are extremely prone to these conditions doesn't matter what the environment is, because every generation has their own stories to tell. When we were growing up as teenagers, we went through pretty much similar experiences in life compared to what the teenagers are going through today. Now, the difference is how they perceive it and how we perceived it, because our knowledge base was limited because of the lack of technology at that time. And today's teenager has far more knowledge base. They are far more aware because of the advance in technology. They have got access to so much more information that people in my generation did not have. So every generation has a challenge, and every generation has a story to tell. And I think it's important for the younger generation to realize the long-term effects, because your adolescence is the gateway to your life. What you do as an adolescent is what you're going to experience in your adult life, and rather throughout life. This is the time, either you make it or you break it. And then it's tough. It's really difficult from the environment. But I don't personally see everything in a complex negative way. Yes, there is a lot of issues that teenagers have to go through, but this is also the time period that they need to enjoy, and they need to have fun, and also realize that this time is never going to come back. So in my opinion, there has to be a concentrated effort on the basis of the family or the peers, the teachers, to understand what is going on in the adolescent mind and address those issues, rather than addressing the issue from right or wrong. uh, Thank you.
Thank you, Sankarji. Before moving ahead, there was due to power outage, I was unable to introduce our first guest. Akas is a senior in high school and aspires to become a cardiologist. He has above 4.0 academic GPA and has obtained a near perfect SAT score. He is a member of Superintendent's High School Advisory Committee. He advises his district officials on key district-wide topics such as students' mental health, teachers, and parents. He is an English tutor at a community college and also privately tutors calculus and English. Additionally, Akash teaches math and English to students in underprivileged countries in Africa. He has also achieved the Toastmaster Silver certification in speech and debate and mentors younger speech and debate students. Akash sings Indian classical music and plays the harmonium, and he has performed on an international level on multiple occasions. Akash enjoys reading books, playing basketball, cricket, and chess, and messing with his younger brother in his free time. Based on findings from American College Health Association and National College Health Assessment, the rates of student reporting having diagnosed with depression has increased from 10% to 18% from 2000 to 2008. Also, studies have shown that diagnosed depression was associated with a 0.49 decrease in students' GPA and treatment associated with a 0.44 protective effect. Depression may also lead to increased risk of self-injury, dropping out or failing college, attempting or committing suicide, and other risky behaviors. We are fortunate to have Dr. Hemant Vargav to guide us on how yoga can be a potent tool to deal with students' problem. He has a MBBS degree in conventional medicine with MD and PhD in yoga therapy. He is working as assistant professor of yoga in the Department of Integrative Medicine at Nihans, Bangalore, India. He has 10 years of experience in yoga therapy, particularly in its application in mental health and neurosciences. He has more than 70 research publications in these areas with two ongoing funded projects from Department of Science and Technology as principal investigator. He has been invited as a speaker to several national and international conferences. From Nimhans, he was involved in developing tele-yoga guidelines in India by Central Council for Research in Yoga and Naturopathy, Ministry of Ayush. He is also a member of UGC Task Force on Education and Research in Yoga. Sir, please guide our viewers that how yoga can be beneficial in tackling these problems. Also, please guide which yoga can be beneficial for depression and anxiety among students.
Thank you, Gaurav Singh ji. I'm really thankful to IM for giving me this platform and organizing this webinar on such an important theme. I think Mr. Akash and Professor Natarajan ji have created a perfect platform for my presentation by highlighting the problems of the youth. So in my presentation, I will quickly go through the evidence base that is there in the field of yoga and its impact on the mental health of the youth, the, the various problems that previous speakers have highlighted. What is the evidence that yoga may help them? And then, as requested by you, I will specifically tell what are the particular yoga practices that can help youth in overcoming these issues, and what may be the scientific mechanisms through which these practices may help. So this is a quick overview of my presentation. I will very quickly go through, I will not go into the details. Now, first and foremost, it is very important that we understand yoga in the correct perspective. When you hear the word yoga, what comes in your mind? Say you close your eyes and I tell you, imagine that you are doing yoga. Most of the people will imagine themselves doing some kind of complex asana, you know. But when you look at the traditional understanding of yoga, the word hatha, ha means the sun, and tha means moon. So fundamentally, the practices of yoga, which are basically the mind and body practices, were evolved to harmonize the biorhythms of an individual with that of the cosmos. And it was understood that if the body, breath, and mind of an individual are in complete sync and harmony, he will be in sync with the nature too. And then, with this calm and relaxed state of mind, when the individual will act, there will be a kind of rhythm and harmony in his actions that will lead to social rhythms. So, yoga comes from the word yuj, which means to connect. And Akashji was highlighting the fact that how much disconnect has happened at the level of emotions between children and their parents, between peers, and in our interpersonal relationships. So yoga has something in it. The practice of yoga inherently has something in it which makes an individual more sensitive, not only towards the feeling of others, but also towards one's own body, towards one's own feelings, towards one's own ambitions, and understanding one's own mind better. Now, this kind of better ability to understand oneself leads to better ability to regulate oneself. There was a study in US where youth were actually divided into two groups. One group on weekends went to gym. Another group performed a set of yogasana practices, basically focusing on the Surya Namaskara practice, followed by performing certain fast yogic breathing practices such as bellows breath and the skull shining breath, Kapalabhati and Bhastrika pranayamas. And then they performed slow breathing practices and then lied down in Shavasana and underwent a deep guided yogic relaxation. Whereas the other group went to gym, and then this routine was continued. Interestingly, none of the groups were given any kind of health education advices. They were just given the practices of yoga or exercise. These were adolescents who were little overweight and obese. And what was observed was that at the end of 6 months, performing 90 minutes of yoga on the weekends or exercise, after 6 months, it was observed that both the groups showed a reduction in their body mass index. But what was important here was that only in the yoga group, it was observed that there was lesser consumption of junk food. Students were more likely to get up early, to go to bed early. They also reported feeling more happy and satisfied within. Now, these are the effects which have not been produced by any kind of psychological counseling or advice. It suggests that there is something in the practice of yoga itself that brings an harmony into the system, and naturally an individual feels like living in more harmony within oneself and with the surrounding. So the evidences also show that yoga interventions can enhance self-esteem. People feel more confident. Loss of confidence is a very important issue that our youth face. If you start your day by performing yogic practices, you feel empowered, because you are doing something for yourself. Reaching a deep, calm state of mind in the morning brings a different level of understanding the situations around you. The way you react completely changes. Till now, it was understood that in physiology, either there will be a sympathetic dominance where you will be alert and your mind will be completely focused on the problem. This is known as a fight or flight response. Or you will be relaxed where you will be mentally dull or sleepy and you will be more vulnerable, in that kind of a situation where digestion is happening, body is restoring energy. But this is a new contribution to human physiology, that yogic practices selectively led to a state where people were mentally relaxed, physiologically relaxed, but at the same time, they were completely mentally alert. So there is a domain of human physiology where you can remain relaxed, but at the same time, you can remain completely open and alert to your surrounding, and the processing of your mind becomes better. Your decision making becomes better. But that happens in the background of relaxation. This is the key of the karma yoga practices, the domain of the mental attitude that should be there throughout the day. That is unique thing that happens with yoga. With exercise, people have reported that their VO2 max increases, their heart rate increases, their basal metabolic rate goes up. But with yogic practices, at the end of it, they see that oxygen consumption has come down, the basal metabolic rate has come down, but their mental ability to cognize and perform selective cognitive tasks became better. So this is what the youth needs now. They want to remain relaxed mentally, but at the same time, they want to do multiple tasks. They have a lot of pressure to cope up, and therefore they need something to cope. Similarly, other aspect that yoga brings up is the aspect of social cognition. Now, this is very unique to yoga. Studies show that yoga enhances the ability of the practitioners to recognize facial expressions on others' face. Yoga also enhances something called as the activation of mirror neurons. When we speak with somebody, when we laugh, other person also laugh, we connect. And there is activation of these mirror neurons which are unique to primates. Now, this enhances our ability to cognize what others are feeling and to respond appropriately. So, youth, and in the developing phase of their life, they face such problems of how to connect socially, how to be confident, how to communicate. So, yoga enhances their faculties. And as I told you, that there is something inherent in the practice of yoga. If yoga is done together, your breath is synchronizing with everyone in the hall. Your body is synchronizing in a sync with the yoga practitioner and everybody else. When you are meditating, all of you are in a sync. Your consciousness is expanding together. This does not happen in the gym. Everybody is doing their own practices, but in yoga hall, everybody does the same practice in the same intensity with the same count, and the attention is put on the same part of the body. So the body, mind, and breath come together, and they don't come only in the practitioner, they comes with the yoga teacher also and all other people who are joining the yoga session. So the whole yoga session becomes one organism, it becomes one entity, and that brings a sense of connection, a sense of communion beyond words, which has deep healing effect on human cognition. All of us know that we are all suffering with our loneliness. We have our Facebooks, we have WhatsApp, we have the whole world around us, but inside we feel lonely. We don't feel fulfilled. But researchers have reported that when people undergo a yoga session together, they feel a sense of connectedness with everyone. There is also a sense of deep relaxation, a sense of compassion. The compassion in youth is very, very important. It comes with the practice of yoga, and it comes not only towards others, but today's youth also need compassion towards themselves. Sometimes we are too harsh on ourselves. The goals that are set up by our families, by our caretakers, by our teachers, we exert too much on ourselves, and we forget that we also have a heart. In fact, the goals that are set, the targets that are set by ourselves on us are too hard sometimes, and that are the main source of our anxiety. Yoga brings this awareness. What do I want in life? For happiness, what do I need? Am I being reasonable with myself? These are the domains which yoga makes you aware of yourself. I will now very quickly take you all through some evidence, because now the whole world believes. And what is the evidence? You may keep talking, it may be written in scriptures, but has any study being done to demonstrate this? Okay, so this is a controlled study where yoga was given to youth, divided into two groups, 4th and 5th grade students, and the program was offered 1 hour per week for 12 weeks. Okay, quite feasible, you can do it. And people reported that there was fewer negative behaviors in response to stress. Their coping, the way they cope with stress, the way they perceive stress changed. They felt more confident in overcoming this stressful situation, and people also reported that they felt a sense of well-being in them with yoga. Similarly, youth who have undergone trauma, Akashji was talking about teen pregnancy. It is a very, very traumatic situation when you go through such a thing in such tender age. And then this study demonstrated that people showed reduction in those symptoms. What brings this deep healing effect is a sense of very deep relaxation, where you feel connected to something beyond yourself. You connect to some higher dimension which is sustaining this universe. Yoga is the connection of individual self with the universal self. This is another definition of yoga. There is a consciousness which is sustaining the whole cosmos, and yoga is a systematic technique through which you turn within and go to the very source of your creation.
Dr. Bhargav,
Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we cannot see your presentation. And when we were seeing your presentation, it was on the first slide only. So is it possible you can move to the next slides?
Now is it visible? Can you see my
Yes,
presentation now?
yes, now it is. Thank you so much, doctor. Continue, please.
Okay. So now I am taking you through some quick evidences. Thank you for this information. Symptoms of youth: their emotional problems reduced, frustration, conflict with anxiety reduced. So ultimately what I am saying is that all of us have a source through which emotions arise, through which feelings arise, through which thoughts arise. When we are able to reach that deeper recess in our heart, there is a source of joy there. The Taittiriya Upanishad, yogic Vedic literature say that in our core, all of us are filled with bliss. But it is the superficial layer of the mind which are very turbulent and which do not allow us to turn within. But when we are able to touch those deeper layers of our existence, that has a very deep healing effect. And this is what nurtures and heals and brings emotional balance. Number of studies show that people who practice yoga, randomized controlled trials, okay, in a period of around 3 months, people reported that their self-esteem was better. Now, this is another very important aspect for youth, no? What image they have about themselves, that becomes better. Their cognitive abilities, as I was telling, with maintaining a state of background relaxation, still they are able to perform cognitively better. They are able to do multiple tasks better. So mind you, these are all randomized control studies showing that a regular practice of yoga enhances cognitive performances in school students. Attention, memory, even they're able to control their behavior in stressful situations. How many times all of us have realized that we just needed a moment of pause, our response could have been very different. The way we react when we do not have that control on ourselves later on leads to regret, guilt, feeling sorry about it. But then yoga gives you that moment of pause, that awareness, that freedom that you have of whether to react in this way, whether I can react in a different way, or whether I have the freedom of not to react at all. So that kind of awareness comes in the mind and that changes the whole life. So number of researches are there where different faculties of cognition have shown to be better as less as 10 days of yoga, can lead to such changes. Other studies are there. So similarly, in specially able children who have low IQ scores, moderate, mild IQ scores, regular practice of yoga can also lead to enhancement of their IQ scores, social adaptation parameters. And similarly, in children who are blind, even they could perform yoga practices by just feeling the posture through cardboards. This study was done in Bangalore, where that showed that their physical fitness improved, their proprioceptive perceptions improved. Now, hyper attention deficit hyperactivity has become a major problem, and it has become more in today's world where all of us are now glued, to technology, and there is so much exposure. The screen time has increased so much, and these radiations, they are making us, all of us, agitated and hyperactive, and that has connection with anxiety, mood, and substance use disorders also, and the prevalence is increasing. So we see that studies also show that around 8 to 16 weeks of yoga practice can lead to reduction in hyperactivity and attention deficit symptoms. Cognitive functions become better. Validated scales, showed change with regular practice of yoga. The super brain yoga is something teacher used to punish in Indian schools. You have to catch your ears with crossed hands and do sit-ups with your breath synchronization. And these kind of sessions have shown a reduction in hyperactivity, super brain yoga. Similarly, autism prevalence also is showing an increase. Autism children, we know that they lack those communication skills, and there is some sensitivity where the skill development is not proper, and the person especially feels that the social connectedness is lost, and there is a marked repetitive and ritualistic behavior, and range of symptoms are there. Basically a neurodevelopmental disorder. It also has been increasing in prevalence, more common in males. Studies with yoga show that a long-term practice of yoga leads to more improvement. So as less as 8 weeks of practice also showed reduction in some symptoms, but longer duration studies such as 6-month regular yoga practice showed that their eye-to-eye gaze improved, sitting tolerance become better, imitation skills improved, and that showed better performance in their relationship with others also. Classroom behaviors became better, aggression reduced. Such are the findings, not only in India, but in other countries also studies have been done. So now towards the last part of my presentation, how does yoga work? What may be the possible mechanisms through which yoga produces these effects? Natarajanji was telling us about various impact, how the brain of the youth differs, and how substance use impacts and different stressors impact the brain of the youth. Now here, this is a very interesting study done by us at NIMHANS, where actually 10 young adults in a scanner chanted, actually 12 young adults chanted the sound Om in the ratio 1:2. So they took a deep breath in, So if you are chanting Om for 9 seconds, 3 seconds O, 6 seconds Ma. They chanted this for 10 rounds and repeated this in 10 sets. So in total, they chanted 100 times. And the same group as a control chanted the sound as the control in the same setting with the same duration to match the breath ratio. And what was observed was that during the chanting of the sound Om, you can see the yellow color here, there was a deactivation of a particular part of the brain known as amygdala, the limbic cortex. This is the center of the brain associated with negative memories, emotional distress, jealousy, frustration. And that area showed a calming response. By chanting the sound Om, you can calm down the distressing emotional feeling that you are feeling in your heart in 5 minutes. So with this research, there was a team that came from Britain, and then there using this FNIRS device, we were also able to demonstrate these results, and this was published in London Economic Times. Then another useful practice, Natarajanji was talking about the activation of the prefrontal cortices. So we all know that this neocortex is something unique to human beings, and this is what makes us human. It basically sends inhibitory signals towards the lower part of our brain, which has the limbic system, which is coming through the practice of Om. Now, this lower brain has animal instincts, and this wants to express anger, frustration, jealousy, aggression. Whereas the neocortex, the prefrontal cortex, sends inhibitory signals to it and wants to calm it down. When you take substances, when you take alcohol, when you take marijuana, it is the prefrontal cortex that gets completely knocked out. And then the human being starts behaving like an animal, So here, I was able to demonstrate in this paper, actually published in Frontiers in Psychiatry, a good impact journal, that just 1 minute of bellows breath, the Kapalabhati breath, that is the skull shining breath, flapping breath of the abdomen. You pull your abdomen in forcefully and breathe out from your nostrils fast. You perform it in an empty stomach condition, 100 to 120 strokes for 1 minute. Just 1 minute. It has led to increase in oxygenation in the prefrontal cortices. So in the graph, you can see the oxyhemoglobin pre, during, and post. It was during the practice that there was a activation of the prefrontal cortices. This means that the ability of the brain to control self-behavior became better. After Kapalbhati, the breath may stop for a while. You just have to relax there and feel deep sense of calmness. So perform Kapalbhati, and after that, chant Om. 1 minute of Kapalabhati, 1 minute rest, and chanting Om for 5 minutes. Such simple practices. You start your day in the morning and you will see a different sense of awareness of your own feelings, the things that are happening around you, the way your mind is thinking. You will have more awareness and therefore more control. Similarly, another very useful practice is Surya Namaskara, that also produces that sense of deep relaxation and control. So this is what I was talking about. The red area is the go switch of amygdala and nucleus accumbens, and that causes aggression, compulsion, and craving. And the green switch is that of enhanced cognition and discriminative power. So yoga activates the stop switch and yoga deactivates the go switch. And that is mediated through various neurotransmitters. And this is how yoga can be so useful, for mental health of the youth. And as Natarajan sir was telling, there are various neurotransmitters that are involved. Researches by Jairam et al. Has shown that 1 month of yoga practice actually can enhance oxytocin levels. Now, oxytocin is the chemical responsible for mother to child bonding. So this social neuropeptide leads to a better sense of social recognition, motivation, and social cognition. It makes us, it gives a feel that we are all connected, and therefore the loneliness comes down and we are able to behave socially in a better way, have more friends, a sense of empathy comes from the heart. Another thing that I was talking about is enhancement of the mirror neuron system activity. And that also leads to a better understanding of the situation, communication, empathy, speech and language becomes better with regular practice of yoga. And then another important neurotransmitter is GABA. So probably the central mechanism through which yoga is working is through GABAergic neurons. The calming effect of GABA. When GABA goes down, you become more anxious. Sometimes you are giving a presentation, you just have to suddenly be called to answer something in school or class, your GABA levels go down, and that makes you very anxious. Streeter et al. From US were able to demonstrate that a single 1 hour session of yoga as compared to a treadmill walk was better in enhancing GABA levels. This was a younger yoga. So your GABA levels are up. It means you are more confident. You are able to face a challenging, stressful situation better. You have a competition. You have swimming competition. You have chess competition. You do yoga and go. You will see that you are able to maintain that tone, of calmness in critical situations. You play baseball. You play football. You will see a different sense of awareness and calmness at the same time. And what are the precautions when youth do yoga? One thing is the practices should not be too slow, but we should also be careful about overdoing it. It is better to start with faster practices, then gently slow them down, and then maintain the posture for a longer and longer time with stillness in the mind. But one thing that is to be emphasized is yoga is not only postures, it is posture, breath, mind, all together in one sync. So you should know where your breath is. You should synchronize your breath with the postures. You should know where your mind is. And then there should be a sense of relaxation in the final posture. That does not happen in exercise. When you reach the final posture in yoga, you consciously relax and you try to expand your awareness beyond your body. So you feel, okay, you are doing tree pose, you go into the tree pose, then you normalize your breath, you consciously relax your posture, and you will see that when you relax your posture, you are able to do it even better. Then you remain steady in that posture, become aware of the whole body, scan your whole body from head to toe, and then expand beyond body and feel that you are there in the whole hall and the body is floating in your own awareness like a fish in the pond. And this is how the higher dimension of mindfulness and meditation comes into the yoga practice and can really do wonders. Similarly, teachers should be aware of any pre-existing condition, health condition. Certain yoga practices should be avoided if you have heart disease, if you have hypertension, if you are obese. So those you should be careful and better to start under a trained teacher. It is better to perform group practices than performing it alone. So finally, yoga, there is sufficient evidence that yoga reduces psychological stress. It enhances self-regulation and emotional well-being, a sense of connectedness. We need more larger clinical trials with long-term follow-up, whether yoga can affect personality, whether yoga practices can lead to development of personality. This is what traditional Indian literature says, but there are no studies, and we need some parameters to be taken from childhood, from school days, and they should be followed up till they go to university and see how personality wise these children have developed. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have question for Akash ji from one of our viewers. How do you think parents can help students who are suffering from mental and emotional health issues?
How do you think parents can help students who are suffering from mental and emotional health issues? So
Yes.
essentially, what can parents do to help alleviate these different stressors that students are facing at school? I think that parents have a major impact on student life. And what I was talking about in my presentation was child neglect from the parents is a very major cause of the students stress levels. So if parents are able to give more time to their students, if they're able to really, if even if there's a homework assignment, if the parent walks over and says, "Oh, can I help you with this?" Or for me, I'm working on my college admission applications. If parents come over and say, "Oh, can I help you with your essays? Can I help you with anything?" I think that just creates a greater bonding between the parents and the students. And because of this, students will feel more free to talk to the parents about issues that they are facing at school. And if they're able to talk to the parents that, "Oh mom, oh dad, my friend is bullying me like this online, or I'm experiencing such and such issue at school," their stress level will go down half right there, because they're able to share the issue with their parents. So I think that parents should really get involved with their students' life, and that will allow the student's stress level to drastically go down.
Okay, thank you. One of our viewers, Arun, is asking question to Gurdeep ji. What do you think are the steps to be taken for creating more awareness in providing student anxiety control through yoga? And do you think uh, government can play a major role in providing yoga, making yoga a mandatory course in college levels, even in premier institutes?
Yeah, so basically in IIT Bombay precisely, we have a Yogastha club as a whole. So now, due to the national education policy that the government of India has passed, the Yogastha club is now planning to start a course on yoga that if the people are interested they can go there, and we have a wellness center as well. So if the person is going into depression or into intoxication, something of that sort, they can directly get into touch with them and they'll connect them to the Yogasta club, and the whole process start from there. And regarding the compulsion part, this is possible. Yeah, we could add the, so as we have a course on sociology, we have a course on psychology, though being engineering students. So yeah, we could add this yoga part, yoga also as a course curriculum in our primary institutes as well. It would enhance our our thinking power as well.
Thank you. There is a question for Dr. Bhargav. What suggestion could you give a beginner yoga practitioner to start with, and how does asana help student to gain concentration?
Thank you for this question. My advice to a beginner would be that you begin the practices with asanas, and you can include Surya Namaskara in that. And it is usually better to prepare yourself before going into asana. So you can do a gentle warm up if you go for a jog, or you do some exercises. You can do it before doing your yoga. So first do your exercises and then come to yoga. Start your yoga practices by performing practice such as Surya Namaskara. I'm talking for yoga for youth. So start with Surya Namaskara. Uh, any young person can easily perform 4 to 6 rounds of Surya Namaskara. do that and then lie down in Shavasana and completely relax and calm down yourself. After that, you can go for performing asanas. Asanas are better to be done. Two asanas you can do, two in standing. Say you can do Trikonasana, you can do Vrikshasana in standing. In sitting position, you can perform Vakrasana, Ardha Matsyendrasana, and then Ustrasana, camel pose. Then in prone position, you can do Bhujangasana, then Dhanurasana. After that, in supine position, Sarvangasana and Pavan Muktasana. These are the asanas which are very beneficial for youth. And then you can again lie down in a relaxed posture. Every asana in the final posture, try to maintain it for 30 seconds. And as I told in my presentation, if you bring your attention to a particular part of the body which is stretched during the asana practice, and then finally relax the whole body, and then expand your mind beyond body, okay, during the asana practice, you will see that you are going into a deeper and deeper state of relaxation. This relaxation will lead to increase in the level of GABA, and that will reduce your anxiety and enhance your concentration. After performing these asanas, perform the breathing practices. Begin with faster breathing practices first. 1 minute of bellows breath, that is Bhastrika. 1 minute of Kapalabhati, that is skull shining breath. After that, perform alternate nostril breathing, the Anulom Vilom Pranayam for 3 to 5 minutes. Then perform the humming breath, Bhramari in Shanmukhi Mudra. Touching tongue to the upper palate, feel the vibration in your face and the head. Then at the end, chant Om for 5 minutes in the ratio 1:2. And then you can lie down in relaxation and perform a conscious relaxation of the body from the head to the toes, part by part. So this is a practice which can be done in 30 to 40 minutes, and this can help in enhancement of concentration.
Thank you, Hemantji. Um, there is one question from Priyaji for Dr. Natarajan. Sir, how often should someone practice yoga to gain a benefit and become emotionally stable?
Um, any kind of intervention, whether it be yoga or meditation, if you're looking at its effect on the brain, as Dr. Bhargav mentioned,
I think we have lost him. There is some connection issue. So till we get him back, there is one question for Akashji from Steve. Do students in United States face toxic competition?
Wow, thank you for that question. Absolutely. Students in the United States absolutely face toxic competition, both at the high school level and at the college level. At the high school level and at the college level, both students actually are very scared for their grade. They're very scared that because of other students in the class, their grade will not be as good. Um, Teachers and professors sometimes grade on a curve. It's called a curve. And on a curve, specifically the bell curve, it means that not everybody can get an A. Even if most of the class got 90% or higher, which typically is an A, not everybody will get an A. See, if you look at a bell curve, it's like this. So on the top of the bell curve is where the most of the students' grades will be. And so even if most of the students got 92%, for example, that will be a C. That grade, they will get a C. And the people who got a 95 or 96 will get a B. And maybe the people who got 98, 99, or 100 will get an A. So because of this, even if students perform well and get a 90% or higher, they still may not get a good grade. They may still get a B or a C. And this can ruin the GPA. So what students do is they actually, suppose if I was to go and ask Gurdeep ji, oh, can you help me with such and such problem? Gurdeep ji may actually give me wrong information so that I will get that question on the test if I get it on the test, I'll get it wrong. So this is what happens in the college level and the high school level. They actually give wrong information so that students will fail that question. In addition, parents of students will give gifts to the counselors, to the teachers, even at the college level. Even at the college level, students will give gifts to professors and different counselors, so kind of like a bribe, so that they can either give them a better test score or they can give them some inside loopholes, so that they can get better grades overall. So yes, there is significant toxic competition in the United States at both the high school level and the college level.
There is one question for Gurdeep ji. Do parents in India really understand students when they talk about job offers,
So basically, when
particularly
I
in case
talk
of
about the
premier institutes?
yeah, so when I talk about jobs, so the problem with India is many of the parents are not literate themselves. So what happens exactly? So when some placements happen, so your placements happen in the premier institutes in the month of December or January. So when the media is behind these premier institutes only. So whenever some placement offers are done there, the very next day the placements are they are there in the newspapers. So then the parents start contacting their children who are actually sitting on the placements. So the placements here are for the whole month, right? So these placements of 1 crore or 1.5 crores is only for the day one placements. So then then the parents start targeting their students and contacting them. How much package did you get? 50 lakhs or 70 lakhs. Then the pressure develops on the students. So this is the problem the students are facing, and the Indian parents are actually obsessed with the five-figure salary and the difficulty of students' life. And there's some problems which are not taken much seriously by the parents. Because the mental health is actually very much disturbed during the placements, season when the placements are going on here, and the parents keep on torturing them.
Thank you, Gurdeep ji. Hemant ji, there is another question for you. That there has been a research studies which shows that it bad results among students, and if we treat that, it can lead to better results. So do you think the asanas that you have already told, are they able to treat these patients completely, or they need any medication or some drug for this control of depression? Is it compulsory, or we can treat any depression using yoga itself?
I'm sorry, who is the question directed to?
To you, sir.
Actually, I couldn't hear the question properly. There was some breaking of the voice.
Yeah,
Can you tell me again?
yeah, there is a question which says that, do you think that yoga itself is capable of curing depression, or patients need to go for any modern medicines as well? Because it has been clearly stated that depression can lead to bad results, and if you treat it at proper time, it can lead to a better results. That already it has been shown in several studies that it's increasing GPA by 0.44%.
Uh, uh, Thank you, Gaurav ji. If you look at the recent CanMet psychiatric guidelines for depression, yoga has been effective as a monotherapy also in mild to moderate cases. In fact, there have been couple of RCTs, one in India, one in University of California, San Francisco by Dr. Sudha Pratikanti. She published a RCT in PLOS One journal where Hatha yoga was given on weekends, as the only therapy without antidepressant for depressed individuals, and it was found that at the end of 8 weeks, people reported significant reduction in their depression scores as compared to a control group, which was given a health education intervention. So, recent guidelines also say that in mild to moderate cases, yoga can be given before starting medicines also. But if the patients or students have active suicidal ideations, if there are suicidal thoughts, then it is advisable that they consult a psychiatrist and do yoga along with medications. So in that way, yoga will help reduce the underlying stress, their cortisol levels, and will work together with medicines. So this is the current guideline.
Thank you, sir. I think Natrajanji's network is not stable, so we are unable to connect with him. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to all our viewers. Thank you to Akashji, Hemantji, Gurditji, and Sankar Natrajanji for enlightening us how yoga can be a beneficial tool in combating stress. Oh, sorry, we have Sankarji with us. Sir, can you just answer the question that was asked to you?
Well, I think there was a problem with the connection. So can you please repeat the
Yeah, we
question?
can. Yeah. How often do you think someone should practice yoga to gain a benefit and become emotionally stable?
Okay. So, like anything else, for a teenager or for an adolescent, practice of yoga or meditation should be on a regular basis. Because of its positive effects, you're not going to see an improvement in your persona or on your state of mind or your focusing power, attention, concentration, all these things that are very vital in those formative ages are going to only happen if you are putting the input on a regular basis. So when I say regular basis, I mean
Dr. Natarajan,
Yes.
just a suggestion for you. In the if you want to turn off your video, that will improve your network connection by a
I
little
think
bit.
he's I think he is not here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what he means to say is that a regular practice of yoga is necessary for enhancing the emotional balance, and as evidence shows that to see significant changes, 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, he is back. Sankarji,
Oh,
you can just put off your video and
I'm
then you
so
can
sorry.
say.
Yeah, I'm going to switch off my.
Yeah, that
Yeah, I'm
will. I think
sorry.
that will make little bit better. It will be a
Yeah,
little bit better for us to
right.
understand.
So essentially, when we advise the adolescent population, the youngsters, of the effects of or benefits of yoga and meditation, it has to be done on a regular basis, and I'm all in for having it as part of the curriculum in the school setting. And in the last we have a big push towards yoga, and we have seen a push towards meditation and the effects of it on the developing mind. And as Dr. Bhargav mentioned, there is immense data out there and proof that the practices in itself will help you become a better person. More importantly than academic success, and all those things are important, but in order to be a better human being and be a happier human being, these are techniques that should be taught to every student, because when you become an adult and you look back and you realize that your life could have been different if you had done these things in a different way, or you have approached them in a different way, rather than looking at it as right or wrong. I think it's important to understand what is it that your body accepts, what is it that your body rejects, what is it that you like in a personal space, and what makes you happy. Because there are things that you think makes you happy, these are very short lived, and there are things that you think makes you happy that could last forever. And I think the effects of yoga and meditation on the human mind and the human body is forever. And you realize it as you get older, that your balance, your ability to focus, your ability to concentrate, and your ability to work hard, which is what life demands in your profession, is all possible if you are prepared for it. And that preparation happens in your adolescent age group.
Thank you, sir.
Very
Thank you
beautifully
to
answered.
all.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you to
Thank
all
you.
our viewers for attending the this session. Thank you to Akash ji. Thank you to Gurdeep ji. Thank you to Shankar Natarajan ji. Thank you to Hemant Bhargav ji for enlightening us how yoga can be beneficial and can be useful for in enlightening the students' life. And in this COVID situation, WHO is also stressing depression and anxiety are on the higher risk in among students since they are not going to school and colleges and they are doing online classes. So thank you for all of us. Thank you all of you for enlightening us. How can yoga help us in these tough situations? Before signing off, I will request you to please subscribe to our
Thank
YouTube
you.
channel for further discussions on topics which will be related to how yoga can be beneficial in other diseases. Thank you. Namaskar.